All we can say is that it has created a great doubt. We all knew that Trump tariffs, they do not follow the WTO rules. They are incompatible with the WTO rules. They don't have the US Congress approval. So they were just on the whims of Mr. Trump. Now, this court ruling creates a further doubt. Now, the question before India or any other country which is doing a trade deal with the US is that can you be thinking of extending permanent concessions against something that may not last beyond few months or few weeks. One more thing I'm not happy is that we have opened automobile for the first time. I agree our automobile tariffs are on the higher side, but if we are getting something, we are not getting anything in return from them. And auto industry, it accounts for 1/3 of our manufacturing GDP. If you start opening like this, Europe is also saying, now US is also demanding for this. What we never opened earlier, now we opened with UK. Now we have to open for everyone. And today, most of the foreign manufacturers, they are making cars in India. It's 1/3 of manufacturing GDP, 4 crore jobs. If I count the person working in a garage on the roadside across the country, 4 crore jobs are supported by this industry. What we are getting by opening? We are not getting anything. We cannot compromise our domestic policies when even gains are not commensurate, gains are imaginary. So that's what I feel. Let's focus on trade and let's focus on reciprocity. I am willing to offer 90% zero tariff to you. Of course, you have to reciprocate by offering this, but they don't have powers to cut. They don't have the fast track authority given by the Congress to the president. So it's all in the zombie land. What is happening is that Trump has created an artificial, illegal, incompatible roadblock. And he's saying, I'll put that roadblock again to you if you don't give me this permanent concession. We have to honestly share our concerns with them and then decide. At the same time, we should not work under a threat of any bully.
Nothing but the truth. Hello, I'm Raj Chengappa of India Today and your host for Nothing But the Truth. This is my weekly x-ray of key issues that matter to you without holding back on the truth. On April 2nd, 2025, the world had watched in disbelief as US President Donald Trump announced sweeping new tariffs under what he boldly called the Liberation Day. Calling it an economic independence movement, Trump claimed America had been exploited for too long by unfair trade practices. As a result, the US trade deficit had ballooned to an unviable $1.2 trillion. Donald Trump then invoked the rarely used International Emergency Economic Powers Act, and this was passed during the Cold War and was meant for really national crisis, and he justified his unilateral action on this. What followed was a global shockwave. Now, beginning April 5th, just 3 days after we announced that, the US imposed a universal 10% tariff on all imports to it. Only Mexico and Canada were excluded because he had already taxed them at 25% earlier. Just 4 days later, Trump escalated the move, slapping reciprocal tariffs on more than 60 countries, and that included India. For India, the tariffs went up by as much as 26%, for Germany 45%, and for China an astonishing 145% on its goods. Now, India was particularly stunned because America is India's largest trading partner, with bilateral trade in goods totaling close to $130 billion in 2024. Now, this does not include the services trade, and if combined, total bilateral trade would be close to $186 billion. That's what makes US India's largest trading partner, and India has an overall trade surplus of close to $41 billion with the US. Now, despite the seemingly close ties between India and US, particularly Modi and Trump had always complained of the high import duties that India put on American imports and called India, in his words, the tariff king. But just as global markets begin to shudder, Trump unexpectedly paused the new tariffs on April 9th for 90 days, signaling a window for a renegotiation. But the 10% hikes in tariffs remain for all these countries, including India. Now, India quickly entered trade talks with the US, and was hoping to clinch a limited trade agreement before the July 8th deadline. Remember, Trump had said that he had paused it for 90 days, and July 8th was the deadline when the high tariffs were going to come into operation. Then came another twist in the tale. On May 28th, a US federal court ruled that Trump's entire tariff regime violated the US Constitution. The court said Trump had overstepped his presidential authority under emergency powers by imposing economic penalties meant only for wartime use. The Trump administration got temporary relief when an appeals court has since allowed them to stay in effect pending further review. For India, this is only a brief sigh of relief as negotiations continue. So in this episode of Nothing But the Truth, we will analyze whether Trump is stumped by the court ruling and what are the positive and negative implications for India. I'm delighted to welcome at this stage a very special guest, Ajay Srivastava, founder of the reputed Delhi-based Global Trade Research Institute or Initiative. He is a veteran trade negotiator for the Government of India. So Ajay, welcome to Nothing But the Truth.
Thanks, Raj. Thanks for inviting me.
Ajay, let's start with what are the implications of the US court ruling against Trump's tariffs, and does it benefit India in any particular way?
So, all we can say is that it has created a great doubt. We all knew that Trump tariffs, they do not follow the WTO rules. They are incompatible with the WTO rules. They don't have the US Congress approval. So they were just on the whims of Mr. Trump. Now, this court ruling creates a further doubt. Now, the question before India or any other country which is doing a trade deal with the US is that, can you be thinking of extending permanent concessions against something that may not last beyond few months or few weeks? When we do a trade deal, we agree to tariff cuts and giving other concessions, for example, in government procurements, in intellectual property rights, they stay permanently. But if tomorrow Trump tariff goes, they go, and they are certain to go. I mean, they are not on sound footing. So it's a serious question that we have to evaluate whether we have to base our negotiation based on these illegal, incompatible tariffs.
Well, that's a very good point, and it does introduce a great element of uncertainty in the negotiations. Do you expect the US to change its negotiation stand, or will they persist, as we've seen with Trump? Whatever he does, he just goes at it, irrespective of whoever is trying to stop him?
So today's news is that after the federal appeal court stayed temporarily, they gave the time up to June 4 and June 9 for the rejoinders from the government and the plaintiff side, and then they will decide. Till that, they have stayed the application of the tariff. But there is a statement of Peter Navarro. He says even if the even appellate court rules against Trump tariffs, they will find another way to push the tariffs. So that's what is the thinking of the Trump administration right now. But we, as independent country, we have to think now. And they were not only, as I said, WTO incompatible, they don't have US congressional approval, and they are not, their own courts are finding flaws with them. And suppose they are there till Trump is there. Once Trump goes, and that will be 3 to 4 years max, then these tariffs are certain to go. But trade deals, they last for years. They are generally not cancelled. So do we bet permanent concessions against such a thing?
Right. That's a very good point. And if you come to the negotiations itself, which are currently on, and there's going to be a round of negotiations in a week's time, I think June 5th or 6th. And if you take a look at what are the contentious issues currently, where is that negotiations? For a moment, let's keep aside the court ruling, and we are proceeding with the negotiations that are there. Are we on track to finalize a deal before the July 8th deadline? And if so, are there contentious issues that we need to be looking at before we get into this?
So, Raj, generally trade negotiations, they take years. But this time, Trump being Trump, he has put that 8 July deadline. You come to
Right.
us with a great sweetener deal. You offer us some great concessions, or else we will be reimposing that 26% tariffs on India and other
Correct.
countries. So everybody is in rush to offer some sweetener to them before July 8. And
Right.
one example is UK. UK US deal happened on May 6th. And that gives an indication about what type of deals US is interested in. They don't have patience or time for a well negotiated deals.
Right.
So now what happened in UK US deal is very instructive. US eliminated tariffs on, say, steel and aluminum for US, agreed to accept a finite number of cars made in UK cars, and they agreed to cut tariffs not to 0%, cut to 10%. So US basically cut tariffs on 2030 lines to 10%. In return, they got at least 100 times more from the UK side. So UK, what UK gave up? US gave up 30, 40 lines tariff concession. UK gave up on 2500 tariff lines. So it's more than, you see, more than 100 times
Wow.
what UK is giving. UK also cut tariffs on many of the US agriculture products, for example, corn. And UK also agreed to buy so many Boeings and so many other things are there which are not in the public domain right now. So the point I'm making is that US is getting away by getting disproportionate concessions from the country on the
Right.
threat that they will be imposing these illegal tariffs. And UK got into this trap. I'm just fearing that India should not get into that trap. So if, generally in a trade deal, two countries sit and cut their normal MFN tariffs. Here they don't have the authority to cut MFN tariff. US
When you say
Congress is
MFM,
not
most favored
empowered.
nation tariffs. Right.
Yes,
Just to
yes,
explain, yes.
yes, yes.
Right.
So these deals are not the normal trade deals, and every country has to be beware of
Right.
giving permanent concessions against temporary tariffs.
Yeah, which is a very good point. And if you look at the way the Chinese negotiated, he had slammed a 145% tariff, but recently they've come to some sort of temporary agreement before the actual deal comes through. How did the Chinese go about it, and is there something we can learn from them?
See, China had the greatest stake when US put the tariffs. Their trade suffered badly. Their factories, they didn't know what to do with their products, so they were suffering very badly. But they put a brave face. When Mr. Trump imposed tariffs, they imposed counter tariffs, and it went on till Trump tariff became 145% and Chinese tariffs on US goods became 125%. Then Trump thought, in fact, US needs even cough syrup from China. They need laptops, cough syrup, EVs, everything from China. Whatever bravado Trump puts, they need things, goods from China. So ultimately, both the sides, they came together in Geneva. In just 2 days' time, US agreed to drop all tariffs, and they say that they'll be charging just 30% on Chinese goods from 145 to 30%, and China says, okay, we'll be charging 10%. But even this is for 3 months, and I know what's to happen in 3 months. This 30% tariff US agreed on China, 20% in fentanyl tariff. China can conclusively prove that they do not supply any fentanyl to US, and those tariffs are going to drop to 10%. So for US, 10% is a new zero for them, and they want to charge 10% base tariff on all the world, including China. That's what is the US-China deal.
Okay. So if you see, Trump has a style of negotiating which is to do the maximum, then he pulls back a bit. He says, okay, I'm postponing it. Then he again comes for another round. It's not like this round is actually over. I mean, he still has a lot to negotiate. So he pushes his maximalist approach, then begins to wean it down. And you think you won, but actually, as we have seen in the UK case, America has won big over there.
So Raj, I think his approach works only if you give in to his bullying tactics. If you stand up to him, he will back off. He will back off, like he backed off in the case of China, but UK gave in. So he's on to UK, took 100 times more concessions from the UK on his illegal tariffs, on the basis of illegal tariffs. And I wish countries should never give up to a bully. They should stand up. US is our great friend. We had great, deep relationships running over years, and they will continue. This will be a minor blip. We should never give in to a bully behavior. Whatever is legitimate, we should agree to that. But illegitimate things, illegal things, which are not going to last, no, no, it will not be good.
Now, if you look at India, the way it's been negotiating its bilateral trade recently, some of the agreements that it has arrived at, we take a look at UK, which we have moved closely. We have done Australia earlier, UAE earlier, and now we're looking at Europe and US. Are there any lessons we should be learning? Did we concede too much to the UK? There's been complaints that we never got into the carbon, the CBAMs, what they call carbon border adjustment mechanisms. So we're not sure when that would be imposed. Did we rush in too much? Or we've been too slow and now we're suddenly speeding up to 100 kilometers per hour when we were going only at 5 kilometers per hour earlier?
Raj, since legal text or full details are not out, all we have is the UK side of the story. So they are telling their stories what they got from Indian side. So Indian story is still not out, not put up by the Indian side, and that's a very sad thing. So UK side is saying they got great deal from India, and I would love to talk about India UK deal. I have many reservations on that deal, but I would love to talk only when the full details are out. Right now, I'm not happy on two counts. First is that India is opening its government procurement to the FTA partner countries. No, FTA procurements are the procurements by central government, the state governments, by the PSUs, by the defense undertakings and defense forces. And we did not join the plurilateral WTO agreement on government procurement. We thought that this is the only instrument in which we will favor domestic firms. Of course, if domestic capability is not there, we can always go for international competitive bidding. But that will be our decision. But by opening bit by bit, we never opened government procurement in any of our FTAs. Now, for the first time, we opened in India UAE. A small opening was there. Once you give a small opening, the next FTA, that opening becomes bigger, diameter becomes bigger. So UK, we gave bigger opening. And I am very sure the opening will be much more with EU and much more with US. And then people say our firms will be getting market, government procurement market in their countries. No, no, that's not going to happen. The data says that, for example, for US, 98% of the federal government contracts, they are given to the US firms. Only 2% for all the other countries, including EU, Japan, India, everything. So nothing is available from outside. It's all domestic, whatever countries say. Same is the case with European Union. Same is the case with UK. So 98 to 99% is given to the local firms. So when you are not getting anything, why we are opening this? Under what pressure? So I am not happy with that. One more thing I'm not happy is that we have opened automobile for the first time. I agree our automobile tariffs are on the higher side, but if we are getting something, we are not getting anything in return from them. And auto industry, it accounts for one third of our manufacturing GDP. If you start opening like this, Europe is also saying, now US is also demanding for this. What we never opened earlier. Now we opened with UK. Now we have to open for everyone. And today, most of the foreign manufacturers, they are making cars in India. It's a one third of manufacturing GDP, 4 crore jobs. If I count the person working in a garage on the roadside across the country, 4 crore jobs are supported by this industry. What we are getting by opening, we are not getting anything. Tomorrow, Toyota will say, why should I make in India? I should better make everything in Japan and keep on supplying from there.
Right.
So one small example I want to share with you. Australia had in late 80s 10 auto companies making cars within Australia. And the tariffs, import tariffs were 45%. High tariff wall was there. But then they thought tariffs are bad. Let's bring down the tariffs. All the ideological issues are there. So in the next 10 years, they brought down tariffs from 45% to 5%.
Right.
And believe me, in the next 10 years, by early 2000, all the 10 car making companies, they disappeared from Australia. Today, every single car in Australia is imported car. We don't want that to happen. It's not the love for auto industry. It's because what they contribute to our GDP, what they contribute to the job sector. And And second, we can open, of course, we can open. Tell me what we are getting in return. I'm not getting, am not able to persuade myself. But we can talk it later when everything is out. Right now, these
Right.
assertions I am making based on the limited information available.
Let's come to the US side. And one of the things we did in the budget was, of course, reduce some tariffs on the auto front, the two-wheeler front. What is US demanding now when you look at the negotiations? There's, I would gather, alcohol or wine is part of the thing. There are dry fruits and agriculture. So let's just break it down. Let's look on the manufacturing front. What is the US demanding and where is India's approach to it? And then we'll deal with agriculture.
Great. So, if we look at US exports to India, Trump's basic complaint always is there that India, because of high tariffs and other barriers, India does not accept enough of US goods because of these barriers. So, if we look at US exports to India, 95% of them are industrial goods, 5% are agriculture goods. So, I say India is in good position to offer to eliminate tariffs on 90% of the US exports to India from day one. So I say, let's offer to the US that India is going to eliminate tariffs on all industrial products except of course automobile and not including agriculture. So if your problem is trade deficit, I'm solving that problem from day one by offering you zero tariff access to 90% of your exports to India. That should solve the problem. But that's not their problem. They know that we are offering these things already to our FTA partners. So they are talking in the public domain about the things which we have not offered, which is agriculture, which is auto. All these things they are talking because they know it's easier for us to give. So they are acting very smartly. And they have problems with everything. It's not about tariffs alone. If it's tariff alone, we can talk about this. But they want so many of our domestic policy changes. They want us to change our digital laws, allow free flow of data. We have almost allowed Starlink to operate despite so many security concerns. We their policy paper criticizes our minimum price support scheme. They have problems with our public stock holding program. If we go on listening to them, they have listed more than 100 issues where they need Indian domestic policy changes. FTAs, they're about trade. We cannot compromise our domestic policies when even gains are not commensurate, gains are imaginary. So that's what I feel. Let's focus on trade and let's focus on reciprocity. I am willing to offer 90% zero tariff to you. Of course, you have to reciprocate by offering this, but they don't have powers to cut. They don't have the fast track authority given by the Congress to the president. So it's all in the zombie land. What is happening is that Trump has created an artificial, illegal, incompatible roadblock. And he's saying, I'll put that roadblock again to you if you don't give me this permanent concession. That's what is the situation before the world, including
Now,
India.
one of the things is agriculture, and we've been highly protective of it. They want to sell dry fruits and certain other products, dairy products. What is our approach towards agriculture? Because that's something that concerns our farmers and a highly sensitive political,
Raj, yeah,
sector.
great question. So Raj, agriculture in US and European Union both, it's highly subsidized, highly subsidized. They invest billions of dollars. They give direct subsidies to them, and 4 or 5 top traders, they handle most of their trade. And India, for India, agriculture is not a trade issue. It's a livelihood issue. More than 700 million people, their livelihood is dependent on them. It's not a trade issue for us. If we do any opening with the agriculture, we'll be flooded with the subsidized grain. So this year, it may forget. Let's for discussion's sake, let's forget about Indian interests or Indian farmers. We say, okay, let's open agriculture. We allow subsidized grains. Great. In the first year, they will come at very cheap price. Indian farmers will stop growing it. Of course, if my cost of production is 10 rupees per kg of wheat and it's coming at 5 rupees, I'll not grow. I'll die anyway. Okay, I cannot sell in the market. They will stop going. Next year, they will not supply. and then we'll die of starvation, whole of the country. And this is not imaginary scenario. This has happened in Africa. Africa, since they get a lot of aid, under pressure, they opened their agriculture. Now, first year, cheap imports. Next year, famine and starvation and deaths. We
Right.
have to learn. Industry, there is open access. Agriculture is the last resort. They want to breach this agriculture in India and other countries, other developing countries. So we have to be very, very careful. Even whatever is looking good, we say for industry, I can see if I get commensurate benefit from your side, I can think about this. But not for agriculture. It's not a trade issue for us. It's a livelihood issue for us. We need deeper discussion. I'll tell you something about dairy. So
Right.
dairy, so our rules say that we will not allow import of, say, butter if it comes from a cow which has been fed the meat of another cow. So
Correct.
it's almost
Right.
repulsive for us. As Indians, we cannot think. US says, no, this is nonsense. How you can do this? This does not conform to any scientific thing. If you recall about 20 years back, I don't recall the exact year, when mad cow disease was there in Europe, and millions of cows were slaughtered because they developed a serious condition, and they were all fed meat of another cow. So they are different, we are different. We have to protect our laws. We cannot come
Right.
under pressure, open this. This is not trade issue. So we need a lot of thinking. We need a lot of consultation.
Very
We
good
need a lot
point.
of
And I just
sensitivity.
want to conclude this with one final point on mobility, because that's also part of our trade thing, our migration, mobility rules that are there. You have seen the kind of restrictions they're putting on our students, and they're, even pulling out research scholarships. Harvard is in trouble. What do we need to do to ensure that our migration and mobility, needs are met in this deal?
Raj, I think they are passing through a lot of discovery process. Internal dissensions are there. Things will come down to a normal and better position. We should keep quiet. Opening our mouth at this time means we have to surrender something. So
Right.
let's not do that. It's applies to every country. They are not targeting us exclusively. So let's just relax and enjoy what's happening there. I think things will be better very soon.
Well, we hope that your optimism is there, that there will be an internal revolt that will stop Trump from doing the kind of things that he does. But the final point is, if you look net, right, is Trump stumped, as we call it, in the sense that the fact that the internal dissensions plus the legal system is now rebelling against him, and therefore what would your advice be to India? Because we are rushing into a trade deal. They're coming next week, and they're likely to conclude something by July. They'd like to have better relations with the US. What do we need to do now?
So I would love to have a trade deal with the US, the way trade deals are done world over between two countries as equals, and both the countries they cut their MFN tariffs. Here they don't have power to cut their MFN tariffs. We cannot cut our MFN tariffs and give other concession based on something which is not legal. So we have to think many times.
So would you say pause now and delay and this thing, or you know how Trump can be, right? We do need America on a lot of fronts. Should we yield a few concessions? Where do you stand on that?
We have to honestly share our concerns with them, and then decide. At the same time, we should not work under a threat of any bully that if you don't, then this will come on to you. We have to act cool. We are a big country. We are fifth largest economy, improving further very fast. We have to act cool. It's not a physical war. Nobody is bombing you. It's a stupid trade war based, using illogical, illegitimate, illegal tariffs. So we should not be scared of that. We should have that moral uprightness that we are on the right track. Within this parameter, any trade deal with the US will be most welcome. But right now, those parameters are not being met.
Ajay Srivastava, for your wonderful insights into this, your depth of your knowledge into the entire subject. We could have gone on a lot more, but as you know, trade negotiations will pull out for a little longer time. We'll come back to you at some point to get more of your insights on this. This is as exciting as watching a T20, the way the ball is moving, the way Trump is trying to ward off and not get stumped. There are a lot of things that's happening that's there. But of course, this is no laughing matter. This is something very serious that looks at the long term and is our future depends on it. But thank you very much for your insights.
Thank you, Raj. Thank you.
Thank you for being with me on this episode of Nothing But the Truth. I look forward to having you with me next week. Nothing But the Truth.